Speaking of policies, it says, no, it doesn't say so here, but it says so here, password policies and hashing. Password policies. In some of our trainings, we actually have you change the password policy first before we create any user accounts. In this one, we don't really create user accounts. The default password policy for Liferay says whenever an administrator changes your password, you've got to change it upon first login. In demos and in trainings, that's really unfortunate because we got to change our passwords over and over, even though we're all just one person impersonating many different people. So that's a hassle. In production systems, it's actually quite good to enforce that. So whenever an administrator sets you a new password and knows your password, you log in for the first time, you're forced to change your password. So if you go to the password policy in Control Panel under User Management, there you can easily find the password policies and just browse through all of the options that you have. Like, do you have to change them? Is there a syntax checking? That's a dictionary lookup. Is Liferay holding a password history? For example, your last 10 passwords. Does a password expire after a while? And will you be locked out if you try 3, 4, 5 different passwords and don't succeed? And how long will that period be? And so on. That's something that you can just configure there. Now with LDAP, the game changes, and we have seen that when we have created the LDAP server and configured the LDAP server. It's kind of pointless to change the password on the Liferay side when it's compared with a LDAP password anyways, or when we use bind with LDAP, because that doesn't really write back the password to LDAP unless we have specifically exported or we want to specifically export it. But as I said, I've never seen a customer that is using the export. It might require a bit of processing, but the 3 ways that we can handle the password in is default. It says here on the slide, Liferay imports and stores all LDAP password in its database, hashing them, making them conform to policies accordingly. Well, Liferay doesn't really import the passwords from LDAP because I'm not really aware that LDAP hands them out in any usable form, definitely not in clear text. So it could be any random hashing. However, when Liferay signs you in through its own through its own sign-on box, Liferay knows the password, can hash it as it would do with its own password and store this hash in its database. Do you want this? I don't know, it depends. But as you have it, your LDAP server can go down and you can still log into your Liferay system. Another option is the LDAP password being ignored and just generating a new Liferay password. We can do that specifically when we are using single sign-on systems, because then we don't see the password anyways. Liferay doesn't see it, can't use it, can't store it. Or just LDAP is responsible for managing the passwords. For example, when we require LDAP server anyways, then there's no use for any password being stored locally in our database. And of course, as it says here, for maximum security and performance, you can offload all password management to LDAP or single sign-on to not store any user passwords in Liferay. So this is, first of all, security, because you can basically secure your single sign-on and Liferay server. You can secure your single sign-on and LDAP server a lot better than you can do a general purpose system like Liferay. And for performance, remember PBK, DEF thing or other, the password hashing that Liferay uses is really draining the performance by design. Now, 2 exercise slides in here. Setting a password policy, you can create a new organization, update its password policy. So depending on which user signs in, you can even have different password policies for different users. You can change the password policy. Take a look at what you have here. When you first open a password policy page, it looks like there's almost nothing there. And that is until you enable these settings and the user interface will complete and will expand and will be richer. And then you can assign the password policy, you can test it to new users or to your existing users. change your password and make sure that it adheres to the rules that you have just come up with yourself. The summary that we have here, the reviews, password policies, yes, it's them, enable you to define the rules, and you can use them too. And these ones, well, you can write them down. You can also look them up in the user interface. You can use the policies for password changes, syntax checking, history, expiration, and lockout. And we do not encrypt, but we hash the passwords. So hashing enables you to protect the passwords. Liferay by default uses, and yeah, if you want to fill this out, PBKDF2 with HMAC SHA-1 160 128,000. Okay, a few minutes for you to just experiment so that you know what the password policies are like, and then I'll see you in the next chapter.